Hey folks, this is Kalani. We're going to be talking warrior, and specifically we're going to be talking warrior builds. Now, as a footnote, this build is going to be focused around PvE. This build is going to be focused around damage, so we're going to be doing as much damage as we can be in PvE. So, may not work in World vs. World, may not work in PvP, and if you aren't used to damaging on a warrior, or rather you aren't used to PvE in general, you might actually have a hard time with this because we're focusing on full damage. None of that pansy survivalist stuff, although there will be a little bit of that included. So bear that in mind when listening, when discussing, if you shall discuss this on your own. So, first the build, 30-25-00-15. Quite an old build, it's nothing new, mainly because folk are now flocking back to it after the 30-00-10-30 craze, which, by the way, in most instances, in most instances was less damage. There we go, got it out. So, 30 points in strength, 25 points in arms, and 15 points in discipline. This synergizes really well. We've got 300 power to work with, we've got 250 precision to work with, and 15% increased critical damage. The others, while they will add to your damage minusculely, as I say, it is very small, so they're not really worth considering when talking about this, which is actually quite disappointing, but never mind. We've got a nice reckless dodge, damaging foe at the end of a dodge roll. We've got burst skills and restore endurance, probably won't be using burst skills all that much. And stick and move, get a damage bonus when endurance is not full. That's a 3% damage increase, which may not entirely be worth trying to keep up. So, down in arms, precise strikes, chance to cause bleeding on crit hits, and critical burst. Burst skills have an increased critical chance, 10% increased crit chance. So, while it's not brilliant or ideal, it's still there. So, you know, if you end up using Greatsword and Axe Mace, then your Axe Adrenaline skill will have a 100% crit chance with this build if everything is up and running. Then you've also got a 10% increased damage to bleeding foes, which synergizes really well with number 5. Down at the bottom, we've got gain Adrenaline on weapon swap, and we've got fast hands, weapon swapping recharges faster. So, what about the traits themselves? You can either run dual wielding, for damage is increased when wielding an axe, mace or sword in your offhand. That's a 5% damage increase, so you'll need to use one of those in your offhand. If you're not using those, you can use death from above, just for some fun. You can use powerful banners, banners do damage when summoned, or you can use any of the other ones if you feel like you really need to. Like if there's a boss which can block, short temper, maybe worth it, maybe not. Great fortitude, a nice little increase to your survivability, but remember it's vitality and not toughness, so it's just the amount of health you have and not reducing the damage you're going to take. So I'd probably take number 1 or number 5. So next we're looking at slashing power, which is number 9. Greatsword and spear damage is increased. We want that 10% increased damage on the greatsword. And at the end, berserker's power, which is number 11. When your adrenaline is full, essentially a 15% damage increase, which is very nice. Down in arms, we've got rending strikes, chance to cause vulnerability on crit hit. Bear in mind, with this we will be stacking precision and we will be stacking crit chance, so crit chance is going to be very high, meaning that chance on crit actually nearly becomes chance on hit, which is very good for half of these. Very good indeed. And then we've got gain might on critical hit with a greatsword or spear. As I say, this synergizes really well with stacking the crit, because essentially you'll gain might on hit with a greatsword to a certain extent. Down at the bottom we've got Warrior Sprint. I use Warrior Sprint. You can use Warrior Sprint for the movement speed increase, or Signet Mastery for the Signet recharge rate. Now we'll have a look-see at stats. Bear in mind, again, I'm full damage, I'm full Zerker with Ruby Orbs. Now I'll talk briefly about Ruby Orbs. Ruby Orbs are very efficient, they are very cheap, and work very well. If you've got money to blow, go over into the trading post. You can search for Scholar. No, can we Scholar. Forgetting how to spell. Okay, so Superior into the Scholar. Currently quite expensive. 2 gold 77 each, and you'll need 6 of them. Now, you will need all 6. I believe that's still the case. The 10% damage on number 6 while health is above 90% is very, very good if you can stay above 90% health. If you can't, it's completely worthless. You lose 4% crit damage, and you also lose 14 times 6 precision. 14 times 6 precision. You lose 84 precision, which is quite a bit of precision. Yeah, 84. Double guessing myself. Gosh. But the trade-off is that you gain the power. And again, the 10% damage while above 90% health is actually a damage increase. But again, you have to stay above 90% health, which is quite difficult, depending on the fight. So you lose 4% crit damage because you get 2 per orb. So over all of these, you get 12, and you only get 8 from the rune. And you do actually get a considerable amount of power. From the rune itself, you get 165 power. But you only get 200 and... no, you don't. You get, once again, you get 120 power. So you do get an increase in power. But they're expensive. You lose precision, and if you can't... if you don't get that 10% damage increase, then it's actually a damage loss to go for scholars. A little bit. The math on there isn't exactly ideal for me, but ruby orbs are highly efficient. That's what I care about. Efficient. I also want that crit chance, mainly for this reason. So, right now I'm running Sigil of Fury, Signet of Fury, which is 180 precision. I've got for Great Justice for easy access to Fury. I've got the Elite Signet of Rage for added might, swiftness, and once again Fury. And I'm running Banner of Discipline. Now, obviously, if you've got more than one warrior, you'll want Banner of Discipline and Banner of Strength. Banners are still the best group buff that you can apply for damage. Probably excluding Time Warp, but hey, banners are still very, very good. So let's see what this looks like with everything popped. So we'll go ahead and get our Fury. That's 83%. We'll drop the banner for 91% crit chance. Now this is in an ideal situation where you're in range of the banner. You basically have the banner down. Remember, this does have a cooldown. It's not going to be up 100% of the time, but that's okay. That is okay, because what you want is a stacking precision sigil somewhere on your weapons. I usually have it on a bow, so I can happily swap out to bow, get some stacks on that, and that'll put me way above the 100% crit cap. So hits essentially become crits, meaning that anything which is chance on crit becomes chance on hit, immediately giving you so much more of that, because every single hit is going to crit, so every single hit has a chance to be that chance on hit, if that makes sense. So if you get above 100% crit, or the 91% crit is fine, anything above 80% crit is very, 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 very likely to be a crit, let's be honest. So things like gain might on crit becomes gain might on hit. Every time you hit, gain might for 5 seconds. That's broken still. That's insane. Then you've got chance to cause bleeding on crit, 33% chance to cause bleeding on hit, effectively. And then you've got 33% chance to cause vulnerability on hit. So you're stacking vulnerability, you're stacking bleeds, you're stacking might on yourself. It just synergizes perfectly with itself. It really does. Apart from that, there's not really much to talk about. The warrior excels at damage, specifically solo damage, and this is what this build will give you more of. The other build 30-0-0-10-30 had very low might generation compared to this, meaning that you had to rely on others for your might generation, which is not ideal in the slightest, especially if you're pugging. If you're a very, very, very coordinated group, I guess, that you always run together, you may be able to find more out of a different build, but right now this is probably the best build if you're either pugging, getting together, don't have might generation anywhere else, love your greatsword, and don't want to be penalised for using a different offhand. I guess that's the last thing. In this build, you only need the greatsword, meaning that your offhand is completely free. You can use a rifle, you can use a longbow, you can use axe mace. Bear in mind, Axe Mace is still going to be the highest DPS if you're able to get in melee, but some fights you can't get into melee. So you'll need to swap out to a ranged, maybe. Maybe it's more efficient, may not be as fast, but it might be better, might keep you alive a bit longer. And basically, personal preference. You can even use a second greatsword, even though I don't know why you would. But hey, I don't judge. So that's to do with the build. I'll quickly touch on healing, because healing has actually changed recently. We used to use Healing Surge, simply because it gave us our adrenaline back. That's still good, that's still a good option, except the buff to Healing Signet is kind of crazy. So right now, I don't have any healing power anywhere on my gear, but Healing Signet heals a tick of 392 per second. Now, or 1 1/4. No, that's the cast time. Never mind. I think it's every second. I believe that's how everybody else is doing their math. So if we think about that, 392 per second. I feel wrong saying per second for some reason. I'm pretty sure it's per second. If it's not, I'm sure you'll someone will correct me. But 392 per second. We'll take 10 seconds as a good calculating number. So we'll round that down because I'm lazy. That's 3,900 healing in 10 seconds. Excuse me. 3,900 healing in 10 seconds. Now if we compare that, stage 3 heal with full adrenaline on a 30-second cooldown. Bear in mind this means that you need to have already have your adrenaline, so this isn't going to give your adrenaline back. That's 9,800. We'll round it down again. So 3,900 for 10 seconds. Times it by 3, 3,900. You're looking at 11,700. 11,700 in the time that it would take Healing Surge to recharge. So that's the strongest heal we have as well. Healing Signet right now is so overpowered. You'd be crazy not to run it. Interestingly enough, because you're running a Healing Signet, this means that you do have a choice. If you've got enough vulnerability being generated on targets, you can actually swap out for Deep Strike, gain precision for each unused Signet, because you're not going to be using your Healing Signet. That's a direct loss in healing, and you shouldn't be using your Signet of Fury. You will be using your Signet of Rage, so there's that to consider. But if you pop that trait on and throw your Fury up,
for great justice.
do you get that out of combat? You should get that out of combat, but it's not applying it. That's interesting. An extra 80 precision, though, will give you... I can't remember how much precision gives you crit chance. That's interesting that it's not applying it out of combat, though.
For great justice.
I wonder why. We'll go get in combat with a training dummy and see if it applies it then. Although we'll need the banner back. 63%. That's without Fury as well.
For great justice. Adrenaline full.
There we go. It seems to have updated now. And it's 9% off your banner, so you get an extra 2%. You get an extra 2% crit if you run that. If you've got enough vulnerability, again, that's always an option. That's kind of really annoying how long it took that to update. A-net please. A-net please. However, that's pretty much anything I think I need to talk about. You've got your build, Healing Signet, you've got your utilities. Again, if you've got everybody with a banner, so if you've got your Disky and your Strength banner down, because you've got that many warriors in the group, you can take Frenzy, or you can take Signet of Might, just for the extra 180 power. It's definitely worth it. You can even take some defensive abilities if you really want to. I don't understand why you would, personally. Healing Signet's got me covered. But, so you've got your build. You've got talk about gear, Zerker with either Ruby Orb or Scholar Orb. Work perfectly. Eagle's also a choice if you really want to do that. Eagle is precision and crit damage, but then you'd need a lot more power elsewhere, which can be a little awkward. I'm using Superior Sigil of Force. If you desperately want to get to that 100% crit, you can swap that out for
Almost there.
the 5% crit chance, although the 5% damage is always going to be more damage. In fact, 5% damage is actually going to be the highest damage sigil you can use, which is kind of lame. But, hey, that's the way it works. So, I think we covered anything. If I missed something out, you want to ask a question, leave that in the comment section below. But I'm just throwing this back out there for all those lost warriors who went over to the 30.00.10.30 and got screwed over. So welcome back to 30.25.00.15, guys. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.